Good evening and welcome to Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Lab podcast. I'm your host, Troy Haines, and tonight I have a special treat. I stumbled across a old podcast that never got produced from a couple years ago. So I was talking for the second time with Keinan Briggs, who those of you here in the Southland know that Keinan has a big track club called Leap Squad, and he has a jumps only meet every year called Leap Fest, and does a great job with the kids down here in Southern California. And we had another podcast earlier that I screwed it up and lost it in production because I'm my own production company, and I'm pretty terrible at all this stuff. I'm too old to understand technology, so I'm definitely made a couple glitches here and there. So this was a second attempt at a podcast, and it disappeared on me for a while. So, and that a while being almost 2 years. So this is from April 19th, 2022. And we're talking with 2 years younger Keinan Briggs. So be ready to listen.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Just nonstop calls today, so it's a good thing.
I bet you got lots of athletes checking in and all that.
Yeah.
Big meet.
Yeah.
So where are you going to hang out since you got 4 different levels of CIF where you could pop?
Well, I found a warp machine that can teleport me. I'm going to be at Division 1. I'll be with Marina and a couple athletes from Woodbridge and at Bruco. Coach Art's going to be with Mater Dei, obviously.
Right.
And Coach Mike will be at Estancia with the rest of the athletes. I don't have any D4 athletes this year.
Okay.
So that works out.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I did 1 year. I remember going to Division 1 at Tribuco and then flying to Moore Park, which was fun.
Yeah.
I had a vaulter there, and it was crazy, but that was the most I've ever done in that one. I'm going to be with you there at Division 1. I'm just going to hang out there this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, got lucky and got down on the field. Jack Reckla, I used to work at Irvine, so Jack knew Brenton, and Brenton was always getting me down on the field when I was at Irvine. So
okay.
Go down there and help Ron Lee run the high jump pit. So
yeah.
So
good.
Awesome. So I in this interim, those of you out there, welcome to Raise the Bar. This is my new podcast and my third episode with my guest Keinan Briggs, who was the guest of the earlier episode 3 that never got recorded because I'm an idiot at the switch. So I was so excited to talk to Keinan that I forgot to hit the record button. So we're recreating history, and but we did get a chance to go over quite a few things, and want to hit those highlights again. Obviously, we were just now talking, the two of us, about our athletes going to CIF prelims, which in all the other states doesn't really matter to you. So in California, this is, and in this area of the state, this is usually the first step on the way to state finals. And we would go CIF prelims, CIF finals, masters meet, and then state prelim, state finals. So there would be a 5-meet run here, which is going to be a little abbreviated this year due to the state of California deciding not to do the state meet. But I think our listeners would find it interesting, and you probably know more than I do, Keinan. How did it come about that there's a faux state meet out there this year in California?
From my understanding, there are some leagues that didn't host the league. Some areas just decided not to do it. And because of that, the state said, well, if we're not going to have everyone competing, we can't technically call it a state championship.
Right.
So I'm not really sure if it's really coming from CIF state saying that they're not running it. I think they just said, well, we can't actually term it a state championship and award those officially if everyone in the state isn't participating.
Right.
So
I have, I have
a few athletes that go to Los Amigos in the Garden Grove School District decided not to host their league. Luckily, those athletes were passed on into CIF. So they awarded them the CIF or the league championship because they were the best athletes on paper. So that's great. But yeah, I would have flipped some tables if they wouldn't have been rewarded, advancing to CIF with that. So
Yeah. It's just funny. I had a couple of athletes that were their coaches decided either not to hold the meet, or I think also the Moore League. There was one of my clients that was having difficulty. He played basketball, right up to the end, and was, I guess the coach didn't say anything about, hey, we'll take it the last second. You know how it is. Get you a mark or get you into league finals. And this is a kid that had been there before too, so I felt bad for him. And parents and ads got involved, and I still don't even know what happened there. But so now that is the one end of it, the fact that they were canceling so-called meet. But now we've got another meet. So do you know anything about that? I know there's like 5 big sponsors, and does anybody know how that came around?
I think just Rich from Prep Cal Track decided, when it comes to business, Arcadia didn't happen last year. And I know that's a big moneymaker for him and his business, because it pays for the photographers, pays for the website. A lot of things are used with that money. And the fact that we missed it last year, this year, was able to work out and have that happen. But he actually lost a winter championship and the Arcadia championship. And then this year, a modified version of Arcadia and another Miss Winter Championship. So he's lost out on 4 events. So it only makes sense is to have, obviously give kids more opportunity to have a track meet, which is obviously the first thing. But the second thing is to be able to recoup some of those losses to be able to keep the brand going and keep track and field alive, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's as little exposure as we get, to like cutting us, really deep to not have state finals. I remember hearing second year in a row, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, these poor kids, because they can't, in college they can get that year back, and they can say, oh yeah, you lost that season, we'll give it back to you. And some of them are still going to leave after they graduate anyway, and they might miss that year. But in high school, you lose that. You just got to move on, and it's got to be difficult on all ends, because now you're trying to fill your rosters with people that you don't know. Like last year, you don't really know what they could do. You're basing it on the previous year. And then, this year you just have that disappointment facing. So now we've got a state meet that's going to be what? There's no masters meet like there was in previous years, where we would send, was it 6? I forget how many we sent, 5 or 6 or how.
5 and the at large.
Yeah, you had 5 and at large. So I remember we had last 2 years ago in the high jump, I think the standard was really low for whatever reason. It was like 6'4" or 6'6" or something. And we ended up sending like all 12 of the kids that were matching me. I think only one didn't make 6'4". So we sent this huge group up there, which was fun. But usually 5 or 6. Okay. And then since that's not happening, how are they going to determine who gets into this thing?
The last I read was they were going to take the top on the list. So whatever list that he has, he's taking the top so many athletes. Maybe it's top 40 or something like that, or 20, which it's kind of give or take. Obviously, it's the most logical way to make it happen. However, this year you had a lot of officials that weren't helping, a lot of less integrity when it comes down to like the measurement and timing system, things like that, because there's so many moving parts, to where I've seen miss marks of the long jump, or even triple jump, where an athlete, her personal best is 29 feet, they somehow saw 39 feet.
Wow.
And then they actually entered that mark into the league championships.
Yeah.
So I get it, mistakes are made, but if I had an athlete that obviously doesn't jump 40 feet, I'm not going to enter his or her mark as that into the future meets,
right?
Because it's happening for Arcadia, and athletes have gotten into these meets, which means they took a bag, which an arcaded bag people pretty much will do anything for, you know.
Especially, yeah.
Also, it bumps an athlete that actually deserved to be in that meet down, you know. So, and then on top of that, you know how it is. If you have the advantage in high jump, you have a different, your strategy is different. You know, if they missed at a certain height, you know, you can play the next height out differently.
Right.
So if you're the last jumper in competition, you know what's ahead of you. And so that jumper was entered in with that mark. So now my question is, will that coach still enter in that mark for the state championship and send an athlete to state when they're 10 feet away from the mark that was listed?
Horribly underqualified. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Integrity, that's an interesting issue. And I know you're a man that's championing that with your athletes and yourself, the way that you compose yourself and the way you hold yourself on the field. Huge issue. Like at meets, you know, I've seen this many times over the years where you go to these big meets and the people working the meets are volunteers that, you know, parents and whoever. Now, sometimes they, at least if they're volunteers, they don't have a vested interest. You also have trouble with the, you know, the local parents or the local team that's running the meet. They're out there measuring and everything. I'm sure that's caused some interesting things for you in the past. You know, and then, you know, the way that I was raised in it was the coaches ran the event, and it was based on integrity. You were supposed to run a fair meet, you know. It's amazing to me what happens on that front. I can't even picture how 10 feet. Like, the event, for those of you that don't know, the long jump can be won by a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch, right? How small does it go, Keinan? Is it an quarter?
When I competed at state for junior college, it was a 4-inch difference between first and fourth place. I got fourth.
Yeah.
You know, so it's literally everyone jumps the same distance based off the eye test. Right. And you have to break it down into fractions to be able to see exactly, you know. So it happens a lot with triple jump because there's multiple boards.
Yeah.
You know, there's typically for the girls, it's 28, maybe 32 or 24. So I get it. You know, sometimes you'll forget which board they jump from.
Right.
And then, you know, it happens. But where I stand on is the coach knows what that athlete can or can't do. And, you know, maybe you can say that athlete could have jumped 4 feet better, you know, because triple jump, that can happen.
Sure.
I've had athletes improve 4 feet in one season. But, you know, a 10-foot difference, it's a big difference. You know, they're jumping from a 20-foot board, 24-foot board versus a 36-foot board. Yeah. It's a huge difference. So yeah.
3 feet per phase. That's a little, that's a heck of a working job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. She jumped 39. Yeah. Well, then, you know, then the pressure's on too. Like you said, what happens at the next meet?
Yeah.
Start jumping 28, 29 again. It's like, hey, you're a 39 footer. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it's like for you, because I just for those of you that are listening to the podcast, when I met Keinan, he was at Mater Dei as the jumps coach, and I had just been hired at Santa Margarita, which was a long, interesting story, but not for this time. And first time ever to meet, you know, I see this young, good-looking guy come up, and he's just super busy. And hey, how's it going? He's got a couple athletes, he's jumping, and then he gets them set up on their approach, and he's like, hey, I'm Keinan, and then he's out of there, and he's back over to the long and the triple, which is on the complete opposite end of the field. And I was very happy that day that I wasn't the jumps coach, so that I didn't have to do the same job. I was able to just stay and hang out with the high jumpers. But having seen that, and then watching him work, and then hearing, just my first time with Leap Fest was 2 years ago now, I guess, because we missed one, right, because of the COVID. And you know, I'm usually accused of, you know, not having my eyes or ears open. So, you know, if somebody says, hey, there's this Leap Fest thing going on, I'm like, Leap Fest? That sounds great. What is it? You know, it's like Keinan Briggs running in Mater Dei. I'm like, oh, wow, awesome. And it's jumps only. And okay. So knowing that, you know, you've got that, and then you're heading into the busiest time of the year with state, and also another new area for me, which is the whole Junior Olympics run through the summer. How does that stack up for you? I know you're busy, but then how did that kind of come around, and then how do you prepare for it? And big broad category.
Yeah. Well, I guess like when it comes to Leap Fest, we all have preferences as coaches. We prefer certain meets we ran a certain way. Sometimes like in high jump per se, they don't run 5 alive. And I'm pretty sure you'd be like, how does that make any sense, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously as coaches, we just sit back and we just talk about what we would do. And so I said, well, I'm tired of talking about what I would do. How about I create an actual solution?
Right.
So I just created my own track meet called the Leap Fest. It was like, let's have a meet where 6-year-olds can be on the exact same runway as world-class professional jumpers. And I was able to create that, and I've had USATF reach out and ask me, well, how did you do it? And a lot of it came down to just my profession. And I just reached out and I happened to compete against these athletes as a professional. But just they knew that I was going to run a good meet, and they knew the reason behind it and the purpose behind it. And so I pretty much let my actions speak for themselves versus me saying those things. And then each year, the first year I had 30 athletes, 25 of them were mine, but I still called the Leap Fest. I still ran it like an official track meet. I did everything. The next year I actually hired officials. So I hired USATF officials. It's a sanctioned meet. So you're being measured and marked by officials, which is very important because of the issue with having parents run. And I had different divisions, great sponsors, all those things. And pretty much the last year we had 7 states represented. Some of the nation's top marks came out of that meet, and just momentum's going. Just keep that going. So that's the main focus, and I'm still not giving up with having a Leap Fest this year.
Awesome.
And I pretty much accept whatever it looks like. If it's 10 people, it's Leap Fest.
Right.
Making it happen. So even if I have to have Leap Fest in Las Vegas,
right,
I'm weighing the options of making it work. So I'm still in the talks with those as of right now. Then when it comes down to like the summer season, is I never had a life in the summer. It was always about the athletes. Track meets are Saturday and Sunday all day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I'm still working on ways to kind of streamline that, because track meets shouldn't be 12 hours,
right.
2 days, 2 days.
Yeah.
And pretty much I just accepted the schedule and then keep on doing things to where people would notice and ask questions. My club team trains year round. Well, isn't that too much training? Yes, it could be. However, we train twice a week.
Right.
Versus high school, the kids jump in, they have an 8-week season. They're literally competing in track meets 3 times in 1 week.
Right.
When you do the math on it. So but then college, you compete twice a month, So it's bringing down that level of knowledge to the youth level.
Yes.
And now the issue that I have is I have athletes going to nationals in multiple nationals. So I have the trials this year. I have 2 athletes going. I have the high school Nike Outdoor Nationals. Right. Then we have the JOs. So I get to be in 3 places at once. Yeah. So I don't have a plan yet, other than just I told the parents that I'm going to go to the athlete that needs me the most. So if an athlete is 10 at JO Nationals, I can send one of my assistants there, because it's about the experience. The kid isn't going there to win. It's about, you made it, great job, make some friends, and let's focus. Versus if you're trying for the Olympics, it's now or, so I told the parents that, and they understand it, they're on board. We work together. So long-winded answer, but there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I find that really exciting on the first thing too about Leap Fest, getting it to another venue or getting it again. So if you have one for this year in the summer, would you have the original one coming up in the fall also?
Yes.
Or late?
Yeah.
It's late. when, I forget when we did it.
It's
November or December a couple years ago?
It's the first weekend of the new year. So the very first weekend. So it's right before, it's during the break. So it's January 1st or 2nd or 3rd or something like that.
Okay.
The reason for it is,
Go ahead.
the reason for it is so coaches can see the talent prior to season starting.
Right.
So get kids
Right.
exposure.
Almost like an early Arcadia, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Ideally, you get it built up to that place where it has the same pull, which it seems like you're well on your way. I remember your Leap Fest followed by the Winter Championships at Arcadia, 2 years ago, and that was kind of fun. I remember looking around, and I had been back to Arcadia since high school. But it kind of gets the old juices flowing. I don't know if you're the same way. I'm walking out there and I'm looking at the bars up, and there's a bunch of kids out there, and I'm just like, wow, this is only winter. I'm like, this is not even the real dance, which of course we didn't get to last year, like you said, and Rich took that bath. But yeah, that Winter Championship's exciting, and then so you got Leap Fest. You're gonna have two of those basically. Well, one this year and one early next year. Okay, then. What was the question I was going to ask you? This is just kind of an aside. I got exposed to the whole. I don't know if you, because I'm much older than Keinan is. Those of you that are wondering, he's much better looking and he's much better on top of things. But when I was competing at UCLA, they still had some indoor meets out here. The Times Indoor, the Sunkissed, and so I went to the Sunkissed Invitational when I was a senior in high school. I had broken my hand playing football, so I got a cast on one arm, and I'm jumping off of wood indoors, and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. I couldn't get off the ground. I was out of shape. I was just like, this is crazy. Why do they like jumping indoors so much? I couldn't figure out what was exciting about it. And so I always had that mentality all the way once I was done with it, and we never jumped indoors in college because we live in Southern California. You don't need to jump indoors. Yeah. I mean, the times that we get rained out of practice are so slim, right? So, but during the pandemic, I was looking for things to do and things to post on the Instagram site on Skyfly and High Jump Camp. So I was looking for anything, and I'd see these people were sending me videos of them competing, and they're jumping indoors back east, and it's freezing cold outside, right? And they're indoors jumping on wood floors in tennis shoes. And I'm looking at that going, how much great sense does that make? That's what everybody wanted to do. I was like, when you could jump, 7 feet in college and high school, you can tomahawk dunk a basketball, and you want to play on gym floors and all that. So this is a long way of saying, what do you think about getting something like that going also in, realizing that a basketball court is going to be pretty limited to just high jump. Any venues where, I don't know, I'm thinking outside the box. Like I want to do something like Leap Festy, but like maybe a little more specialized, and yet, get some people there and have it be a big event, have a really nice floor, have, really nice pits and everything set up with the, like you're saying, you make it really nice USA track and field type officials. And, I'm foreseeing the problems of, I don't know, like when, because a lot of my best athletes are going to be playing basketball, in the winter, and then you still get a few jumpers playing football, of course, so they're not going to be able to compete in the fall, or if they are, they're going to be either A, out of shape, or B, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I'm just thinking out loud. All right. What else? We were talking last time, and again, those of you that are picking up halfway through, I forgot to hit the record button. Tell everybody a little bit about the where you started and your vision. I can't say that I understand the breadth and the depth and the scope of your vision, because every time I think I've got you pegged, you're doing something new, and it just keeps changing, as you're going along, which is awesome. And Keinan told me last time that your major was communications.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's patently obvious if you listen to him. But he's very good at communicating both with his athletes and with all the different forms of social media that he's using to promote his business. So tell us what how it started and kind of how it's evolving and where you want it to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, growing up, I had coaches, old school coaches that pretty much like, just get it done. There was never a process of how. And I would always think to myself, well, is there an easier way to do the same thing? Football, basketball, I grew up playing my whole life. And then my football coach said, hey, come out to run track. And he was like, all right, go hurdle. And you take 3 steps. And then that's really what it came down to. And I believed in everything the coach said. It should be one of the best in the state. Fast forward, I was one of the best in the state as a hurdler and a triple jumper. I was a 6'4" high jumper also. Right. And yeah, I got to junior college, same concept. They said, you should be one of the best in the state. Same thing happened. But then at the college level, I was introduced to the how. And the coach said, all right, I'm going to tell you a certain amount of information, execute that. And when you have that done, we'll progress to more. And Eric Moreno is the one who really taught me those basic skills. So whenever I questioned, hey, what's going on, he would tell me, and then he'd walk away. And that was it, So that really helped me with the quicker I just get whatever needs to be done, complete, I'll get the next piece of information. So it was kind of like I was nibbling at something versus taking the whole pie at one time.
Right.
And I just learned the triple jump with Coach Hodge. Coach Knox was there at that time, and he's the one that created a team atmosphere to where I knew everyone's name, which was a big part of sports, where I think the misconception of when they say individual sports with track and field, it's not an individual sport. You're held accountable for your actions.
Right.
At a severe level than the other sports. You can have a bad game in basketball but still win a championship. With track, you have a bad game, you're watching from the stands the rest of the summer.
Yeah.
So I learned those things, then got to Cal State LA with Sheila Hudson. Chris Asher literally yanked me off the couch, and got me to Cal State LA. Sheila Hudson pretty much taught me how to expect to be great. I wanted to be all my life, but then she said, no, it's an expectation. And ended up at nationals both years I was there. And then I took that with me. I saw what didn't work and what did work within the collegiate system. And I created my own program. And then I applied that program to myself. Ended up a couple years later, ranked in the world, ranked in the US with that program that I created. The whole time I had been working with athletes, from 2002, I got certified as a trainer. So I would always play games with how can I teach this person how to lift weights without physically showing them. So I would just talk out how to do things, or I would be across the gym and yell across the gym about what drills to do. And pretty much I just did it subconsciously. It just happened. So then that really helped me when I was working with football players, because we would travel all over the US and I would have 500 athletes at one time. And I'm having to lead these kids on certain drills. And so during that process, again, back when I was ranking the world, this is back in 2011, I then applied it to the philosophy that I had to a handful of athletes. Cale Kavanan, who was the coach at Portola, head coach there. Dustin Holtz and Victoria Reach, who was a pole vaulter who basically went to Cal Berkeley. They all improved the exact same. Victoria's had the same type of improvement that Cale had. Cale and Dustin went from 11.4 to 10.9 in the 100-meter dash. And then it worked out that I ended up over at Modern Day. They offered opportunity and that really worked out. And I just applied that same process to those athletes, and it was the same results every single year. But I knew that I had to keep fine-tuning that. So basically everything that I put my athletes through, I physically did. And I talked to the athletes for feedback to understand, okay, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Great. I'm going to make a decision. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we're going to go back to the lab and try it again. And that level of transparency really builds trust. And then obviously being with the kids, year round, even if it's twice a year, communicating with them, having motivational Mondays, knowing them off the track is huge. To this day, athletes call me just to say hi, not even about sports. Yeah. And, I know you have the same, and just kind of planting that seed and saying, I expect that level of communication, then they're going to take the extra step, and that creates that level of trust. And just the results have come from the athletes just trust what I'm saying. And then I am confident in what I'm saying works. So, this is the safest way, the best way that I think of as of right now. Let's go with that. And then you can blame me for your success or blame me for your failure. Yeah. So, that's been my whole mission, is to continue that and eventually to stay ahead of the curve, because there are so many groups now, jump groups, that are now jump squad or, sprint squad and all those things. And I see that trend happening. There's a whole bunch of, my brother competed last weekend at the field festival at the training center. So it's not about people taking my idea. I don't care. Like, the goal is, let's continue this thing. It's about, since I'm bringing people to continue thinking outside the box, let's keep doing this. I got to keep advancing. So I got to stay ahead of everyone else. So I continue innovating the ideas that I have, the virtual coaching, now I'm going into the mental space of athletes, bringing down the pros get down to the youth level and understanding how to balance the mental health and creating your opportunities. Because many times kids are looking for them. However, now you can create them. Right. And so these are some services that I offer as well. So another long-winded story, but that's what I've been motivated by, is the next thing. What's next, basically.
So I'm sure, as you're going through this, you've had multiple league champs, you've had CIF champs, you've had, state qualifiers and state. Have you had a state champion yet?
Not yet. I've had virtual state champions. I had state champions from DVAs where, myself and other coaches teamed up. Right. But just from my program directly, no, but I've had 7 athletes at state in my 8 years of coaching high school track.
That's awesome.
Which is a pretty cool number.
Yeah, I'm sure that, and this is a quick aside. Sometimes I think it translates better with the harder work. My first year, I left UCLA, and in '86 was my senior year, and then '87 I kind of wandered around the campus aimless. I was still in school, but I was no longer on the team. So I had graduated off the team, and of course they picked that year to win their last national championship was '87, and I had never redshirted. So I was a little bit mad, but also I had nothing I could do about it. And I was happy for the guys that I'd been training with, that they'd won that title, but I was just like purposeless. And then '88 was an Olympic year, so I tell my mom I'm not going back to school, and I'm going to train for a year for the trials. And she kicked me out of the house. She said, "Where are you going to live? Because you're not going to school anymore." Like, "Oh, bummer, you're kicking me out." So I had to work 3 jobs and train, which I did. And I grew up really fast doing that, by the way. It was interesting for me. But long story short, I get done with all that, and I come back. I didn't make the trials, and I decided, I'm 24 years old. I got to go back to school. So I got that taken care of, and then I started coaching Orange Coast, which we have in common. So, John, you were mentioning John Knox and Eric Moreno. I know them both pretty well. So I started coaching, and my very first year at the junior college level, I had a girl win the state meet in the high jump. And I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I did and I didn't. I knew what I thought worked in jumping and all that, but at the same time, I didn't have it all worked out. I'm a 22, 23-year-old kid. I was just barely older than the ones I was coaching at that point. And so, she wins it her first year and comes in her second year, and I'm thinking, man, I am just the cat's pajamas, man. I know what's going on. And then it's been since then, 1989, until now, 3 or 4 years ago, I made it back to the state meet with a high school kid for the first time, and was just like, oh my gosh, this is so great. I forgot how great this is. And at the same time, nowhere close to winning, so I'm like, that becomes, a competitor like yourself and myself. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be satisfied with taking somebody here. I want to win the whole thing. And that, when I say obviously you want them to win, and you're thinking, how can I get them, to that place? Yeah. So, and then I hear you've got people that you're training that, at the collegiate level and also at the Olympic level. So how do you manage to do all that? Do they come to you? Right, because you can't go everywhere, right? You're limited by time and space still.
Yeah. I have one slot of practice and they come to that. That's where I am.
Yeah.
When I was a trainer, I did all the travel here, travel there, spend an hour to drive someone for an hour. They paid me for the hour, but I lost 3 hours because it took me an hour to get there and get back.
Yep.
And I just pretty much put my value, I did the math this year during COVID. I did the math on what's happening. And I've had athletes that ranked in the US, ranked in the world for their age group and negotiating scholarships, and look at the value of the school and how much it costs to go there. And they're going to schools that cost $40,000 to $50,000 a year.
Right.
And they're on a full scholarship. And so I look at it as, okay, well, that's over $200,000 roughly that my value brought forward to the family.
Right.
And so I just said, I can't move around. So my spot is here. If it works, great. If not, then you get to figure it out. If you want to train with me, this is where I'll be.
Yeah.
So yeah, just pretty much knowing that my time is valuable and knowing that for myself. And then also knowing that when they come, I have to serve them as best as possible.
Right.
Because I work with a lot of kids, like my whole club team is 98% not modern day students.
Right.
So when I was coaching at Modern Day, I opened up Leap Squad so I can service all the other kids that I was watching that did not know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Essentially creating my own competition.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they say, why are you training everyone else? And it's like, because at the end of the day, it's about the experience.
Yes.
If you want to beat somebody, then you make that happen. Everyone's going to have an even playing field when it comes to my perspective. Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, it's been kind of that. And this year, just sticking to that concept, I've had more athletes come and make it happen. I have athletes that are coming from Victorville, Simi Valley, Palos Verdes, just to come train. But yet I have an athlete that's, 20 minutes away saying, oh, it's too far. You have anything over here closer to me? And it's like, I don't. Yep. So, it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
So
be where I'm at.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know out there if you're listening on the podcast, what is motivating you to listen. If you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you've got all these questions, you're just interested in track and field, you're interested in hearing what's inside Keinan's head or, every once in a while, what's inside my head. The motivating force, it's so funny that you say that because I remember even as a competitor, there were times. Now there were some people that you might not have liked, and I wouldn't have said anything to them when they weren't doing something correctly. But then you had other people that you just like, dude, if you just do this one thing, you're gonna make that bar. You had it. All you got to do is move 2 inches farther out, or hold your knee drive a little bit longer, whatever. And that has never left me. I'm the same way. I'll coach anybody that is dumb enough to listen to me. I can't help myself. I don't know how that works. But like you're saying, you're coaching these other kids. Now, if there's another coach there, I think that, we run into a little problem. So first thing I usually ask is, where's your coach? And they're like, oh, I don't have a coach. And now I feel like, well, if you want any help, here's give them a little brief credential or just say, hey, these are some of my kids. If you've been watching them jump, and I can give you a couple pointers. But yeah, I don't know that ever goes away. You're talking about had it happened for me, even at Santa Margarita, with some of the other kids in the area, and then yeah, at Los Al, the whole Edison jump crew was mine for a couple of years. I went to clinics over there and taught them up. And then at our league finals, this year they swept us. Yeah. It's just like, he's looking at me and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. They listen. Yeah. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why that is, but it's weird. I tell people it's kind of like that, what Jesus said about a prophet not being being without honor except in his hometown, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for some reason, when you go somewhere else, when you're the guy that they brought in from out of town, they're all ears.
Yeah.
You know, these kids that are right there, you know, coming from the high school that I'm working at, they're just like, oh, they don't have a minute to pay attention. I just find that interesting. So
Yeah.
along the lines, you gave a great list of all the stuff that you're doing. Where do you see your business progressing to, this whole thing? What are some of the goals for the future and some areas you're seeing for growth? You've mentioned some things like virtual coaching online. You know, I'm interested about that because I did that with one guy over the pandemic by FaceTime, you know, from me to Ohio, which was fun.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm like, wow, with this technology, I can actually watch him jump and say, hey, do this, and actually, you know, show him on my phone what I just filmed with him and fix this, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear what you have in mind for coming up.
Well, my immediate goal is to have 10 Leap Squad facilities worldwide. That's in my 10-year plan. And have it to be able to train under the umbrella of what LEAP stands for: Lead, Elevate, Achieve, and Prevail. And so that's that goal. Another personal goal I have for myself is to win a Nobel Peace Prize. And it's to innovate the way of learning, the way that we teach, the way that we learn. Again, I have no idea how that looks. However, it doesn't matter. I just know that that's the end result. But then in the immediate, it's basically just continue educating. So my mission as of right now is to inspire the youth so that they can live inspire the youth through the avenue of sports so that they can live a life of peace, love, and abundance. And that's been my whole purpose, is to help kids understand that track and field has an expiration date. Sports has an expiration date. Right. And you look at most of the, world-class athletes, they're done at 30, 32, 33 maybe. Right. And so you got 70 more years of life to do. What are you going to do with that? I look at, especially with track and field, is your effort yields results, and if you're always in a space of 100% effort, you're going to receive 100% of results. Even if you lose, you're going to be okay with that because you're like, that's the best I could do. Yeah. And then what if you apply that same mental process into homework, business, career, love life, relationships, like all that stuff. And that's really what I kind of motivate with others and also coaches. So what I've created is a universal athlete, and universal athlete is dealing with the age group of 14 to 17. The kids are looking around about what to do next. They don't really know, and they don't know what they don't know yet. So the Universal Athlete 101 is a virtual course that I put together that's all about planting seeds. It's all about me asking questions and showing them some of the facts, and then they record themselves answering the questions on their own. And then now they have these videos of them to start to think and get the wheels turning about, what school do I want to go to? Okay, I want to go to this school. Well, why? Oh, wow, I don't know why. Because I saw a commercial. Great. What is that school going to bring to you? Do you know what to eat? Do you know how to manage your time? If you say yes to this, what are you saying yes to also? It's that whole type of thing that parents say all the time anyway. It's just repackaging it into a way where it's on the surface of sports. However, it's about those life skills. And then I have a universal leadership course, and that one is all about pulling out the character of each person. This one has nothing to do with sports at all. It's 100% on what value do you have and what can you offer the world. And so now when you're applying to an institution can now hear what your value is, and then you're going to increase your possibility of getting into that school because they're going to do an interview and learn about you. And I've had two athletes that both applied for a big name school, and they had the same exact marks. One got in, one didn't. And it came down to the other one had a nonprofit. So she had a community service project that she completed and was doing. The other one didn't. Mm-hmm. Both had 4.8 GPAs. Both jumped or told to top athletes in the state. The value was the other person brought an appreciation to that school. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about creating that next type of person. and showing them pretty much like a mirror. This is who you are. Celebrate you. And that's a 3-month program that I put together.
So, wow, that's just like I said, I'm sitting there thinking one thing and you just knock me back. 10 Leap Fest things around the world. That's amazing. Do you have any places in mind yet, or is that just a big goal with nowhere to go? Do you have some inroads already? An idea of a place in Mexico or Jamaica or?
I mean, ideally it'd be great to have one in each area. So like if it's summer here, then maybe there's one in Australia, to where there's always something to go to. So now, if it's just a training center for some athletes, well, then you can go to Australia and train there because the weather's perfect, and you can come back here in the summertime and then go. There's just options. Basically, I don't have any ins and outs. I have no connections yet. Hopefully this will create some, but
Absolutely.
I just sat down and went through what's possible in 10 years. So I switched my goal setting from goals to what's possible. Because goals, I feel that I think more in a sense of realistic, versus what's possible is anything is possible. So great, write that down. So what's possible is I could have 10 stadiums in the world spread out to utilize to run a world league. It can be anything. So as of right now, it's just having that opportunity. And I would love to have a Leap Squad Academy. Just how IMG kind of is, it's a school. However, it's kind of based around sports. It'll have the surface of sports, but it's really about character development. Just getting kids to be the best them using sports. So
that's exciting. What was it? Thinking along those lines. Yeah. How about getting kids? I don't know. I'm sure you've had this experience. I've had several. It's been mostly young men. I think almost, not always, but mostly young men that have said, "Hey, I want to come over there and train." And have one kid in Jamaica. This kid, I watched him on film, and he's just a tall stick, and he's fast, and he gets up in the air, and I'm looking at him going, "Oh my gosh, this is the kind of kid I want, here." And he's from Jamaica, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to come jump there." And since I've known of him, he's already gone from 18 to 20 now. And I got in touch with some of my contacts at the junior college level and was like, "Hey, can we get this kid over here?" And maybe it had something to do with the Trump administration, and maybe it was just the difficulties inherent but it was like, man, I got a half an hour dissertation on what it was going to take to get this young man over here, and none of those steps was easy, and all of them involved money, which I'm pretty sure that they didn't have. And I'm like, wow, this really stinks. I coming from UCLA, there's a long history at UCLA of, athletes coming from other countries to play on these teams, from, CK Yang back in the 60s, who, medaled right alongside, Rayford Johnson in the decathlon, and also did the same thing at UCLA with him. Right. So, and you've got this great legacy of us bringing people over. And I'm like, I'd like to keep that up there too. And then, at the same time, you get everybody saying, "Well, what are you bringing somebody from another country over to our country for? We got all these kids, they could go compete there." So I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, but I really want to get this kid here because he's, he would be so great, So that's something that, you're talking about, the things that you think about as a goal. I haven't set that as a goal so much as like what you said, your second one, the 10 Leap Fest. Like, I could see that happening. Not sure how it's going to happen, but trying to see if I can get that to work. I had one thing that keeps popping in my head, Keinan, and I want to talk about it because I think it's time. The world is ready for this time, and it needs to be the ability to be open and transparent and speak the truth. The world is changing, and we've seen still in the United States, Black young men and women killed at an inordinate rate, over everybody else. And I keep waiting, thinking, this has got to be it. This has got to be the last one. And I have to be the biggest fool on the planet, because as soon as I think that, somebody else has been shot and killed. And I'm, here we're living in a country where, this was supposed to have been solved over 100 years ago. Slavery was abolished. Abraham Lincoln, the South was defeated, and yet we are where we are, and I just think, what can we do? What's next? How can this change, for the better without violence, because some people are always going to say, well, that's the only way, it's going to change, is there's going to have to be a bloody revolution, and we've seen some of that. So I just wanted to open that topic up, if it's not too intense, and see what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So for me, the way I see it is, I don't foresee the change now. The change comes from the next generation. And so obviously what's happening is, before social media, you only knew what was around you.
Right.
And now you have a generation that sees all colors differently because of what they see on their phones. Right. And then also their phones, they can control their own narrative of what they're looking at and their perspective of it. Because growing up, I had the TV with the Turner, right? So I only had 13 channels and could go to you and go to the other channels. But, I was only watching what TV would tell me. And then when social media came out, I was on YouTube and those things. So looking at this new generation, I'm applying that way of thinking, that, every person's experience on social media is different. Instagram ours will maybe be different than another kid's. I don't even have TikTok, but their experience on that social media platform is different. So it's really, for me, about like educating and giving the voice to that next generation, about not fixing our generation's issues. It's about saying, you see what's happening? We did things a certain way. Don't do what we did.
Yeah.
So you create what you want. And so I had the conversation with Miles Split. We had a conversation about this whole thing. And afterwards, I thought about, like, what was I really trying to say? What am I doing differently with my program? And I'm just being the best me, right? And the kids are going to obviously hear whatever they hear. Right. Then they're going to think of me and say, what you're saying is inconsistent with people that I know. And then that person then has the option to make their own story, their own narrative about what's going on. Right. So that's what I've adjusted, is just speaking from that place of being more authentic with my athletes. I did a leadership workshop for myself, just to kind of just be the best me, and they know that I did it, and I tell them what I'm doing. So basically, it's just allowing them into my life, and not trying to always be coach-athlete relationship. It's coach-athlete, hat off, I'm your friend, what's going on? Yeah. And so what that'll leave is a lasting impression of whatever impression they may see or hear one place, they're going to have in their head, I see that, but I didn't see that from every single person, for every Black male or whatever it may be. I did a lot of research because I was educating myself on, like, just numbers and all those things. And as much as we could go on in detail about how certain things are not fair and all these things, there's all that proof. At the end of the day, it's what's physically happening now to change.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of the Einstein quote. I may say it or butcher it, but basically, when people do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yeah, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like, okay, we tried one thing, didn't work. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
And then following, Thomas Edison, the reason why he kept going in the wrong way and failing is he said, I realized after so many mistakes and failures, I was pretty much going to find the answer, because there was no more failures left to have.
Right.
He wasn't motivated. He was like, might as well stick with it. Yeah. So my thing is, again, I don't have the solution other than what I decided was be the best me, love everyone around me, just always speak from a place of response versus react. You know, on top of that, my dad is a lieutenant or captain. Sorry, take that. He's a captain. And so I grew up in that household. So it was like, you know, some cultures believe this is the way we see cops versus I experienced a whole different experience in the house.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just a different thing. So it's basically like accepting everyone, regardless of the viewpoints, and just, in my end, touch as many people as I can from a space of authenticity and just love and care. And they can make their own decisions from there. And hopefully they'll look at the track record of the experience, and then whatever's told to them, they can respond with, that's not what I believe, and use their own voice. So
yeah, it's such a, you know, such a powder cake issue. I've never really thought in my lifetime that, I don't know, in some ways, such a negative mindset. It seems to me that people are so angry. Lots of times they don't even know what they're angry about, and other times they're very well aware of what they're angry about. They're frustrated. They don't know what to do. But I'm like, I don't like the feeling that I'm getting of this pitted one side against the other. You know, the possibility of a civil war in our country. You know, that I think when people talk about something like that, they're just like, that could never happen. Like, well, it did. It wasn't very long ago. It did. And, you know, we came through it, but it's like, you know, we're being faced with some of the same things again. And, you know, I'm hopeful. You know, I see things, I'm kind of an optimist by nature. And, you know, I like to think that cooler heads would prevail, you know, but man, you look at some of the stuff, you know, that's happened just in the past with storming our own Capitol and this and that. And I'm just like, wow, are we, you know, what are we as in this country? You know, when I was raised living in San Francisco, in downtown San Francisco, where my mom grew up, you know, was a real melting pot of different cultures and you know, colors and everything else. And I was very fortunate to be raised by a woman who, you know, respected other cultures. And I lived in Hayward for a while as a kid in the suburbs of Oakland, and, you know, moved down to Long Beach, and was, I think, fortunate to be raised by people with the mindset of, hey, everybody's on the same ground. You know, having become a Christian in my past, was always amazed at the fact that, you know, Jesus doesn't see colors. You know, everybody.
Yeah.
Paul goes out and says, you know, there's neither Jew nor Greek, nor male nor female, nor slave nor free, right? Everybody's on the same boat because we're all sinners, right? So I'm like, so once you realize that, and for me, it's just like, hey, you know, we're all struggling to find our way along here. Can't we work together? And I have hope, just because our country was founded on that. I mean, we came from, you know, we're like the wretched refuse of all these other countries, you know.
Yeah.
And why can't we make it work? You know, I mean, you keep talking, you know, there's different races and ethnicities and everything. It's like, okay, but wait, can't we just say we're all Americans?
Yeah.
You know? And I think the thing that I'm praying is going to be one of the big equalizing forces is sports. Sports is such a great microcosm. Like, you've been teaching your kids. I've heard you say these things, that, you know, these values that you're learning through competition is their life lessons. You know, you learned the same thing I did from some great football coaches. I had football coaches that were like, these things that you're learning, these lessons apply not just to football, they apply to life. You know, the harder you work, the more success you get, you know, just simple stuff like that, but you play it out. And so, you know, with athletics, there's such a great, I think that's why the Olympics is such a great thing. You know, when you can see all these things happen on this big stage, and there's all these different ethnicities come together, and you'll see people hug each other up on the victory stand, where you're like, wow, they couldn't be any more different.
Yeah.
But yet, well, DNA says we're pretty much the same. You know, we're all the same race. So, you know, it's hopeful. I'm hopeful that with this platform too, we can help out in that respect. Well, Keinan, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. I'm gonna call you my young friend because you're so much younger than I am. I feel like a dinosaur so many times. This time is valuable to me. I love hearing the different ideas, and there's so much more to be done. So I'm hoping that we get the time again in the future. I'm be honored to be any part, help of anything that it is that you're trying to accomplish. And shameless pimping for your stuff here on on this is not a problem with me. I love the vision that you have for your kids, you know, trying to help them achieve and become better people, and teach them how to be great jumpers along the way. It's and then now you got my brain ticking over. I'm like 10 different places around the world. That's awesome. All right. So, young sir, good luck this weekend. You said you're going to be at Division I. I will definitely make my way over to you, and we can talk a little bit more off the beaten record here. But great. Good luck tomorrow. I know we got a lot of people out there, and it should be a lot of fun. You got another 3 or 4 weeks coming, right? And then the JOs, and well, you got that schedule. I'm limping to the finish. I got to be honest. It feels like 2 seasons in a row. I need a vacation. But thanks again for your time, Keinan, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Yes, sounds good. And thank you for having me.
Wouldn't miss it. Thank you, sir. Talk soon.
Talk to you soon.
And that's going to wrap it up here on a special Lost in the Archives edition of Raise the Bar. We have a young Keinan Briggs talking about his plans for world domination, for expanding his reach to other countries around the world, and helping kids, you know, achieve and become better young men and women. And you know, he's always got a smile on his face. He's always pleasant. Every time I've ever talked with him, just very upbeat and upfront, and does a great job with his kids there at Leap Squad. So thanks again to Keinan. 2 years later, I have talked to him since then. I bump into him all the time. So anyway, it's great to get this episode out there finally, and we got to do more with him. So until next time, this is Troy Haines of Sky High and Fly Jump Labs. We are signing off, and we will talk soon.